Thank you for joining us for the 2-Minute Drills. I'm San Gabriel Valley Newspaper Group football writer Aram Talegian, joined by San Gabriel Valley Tribune Prep Sports editor Fred J. Robledo. Freddie, we have arguably, and we've kind of said this a lot about Amat this year, the most important game of the year coming up this week for the Lancers. Bishop Amat, 5-1-1 overall and 0-1 in league, hosting Crespi, 7-1 overall and 1-1 in league. And Fred, the reason why I say this is the most important game of the year, and you could probably say that again next week, depending on what happens this week and maybe even the week after. But for now, this is a real pivotal swing game for Bishop Amat. They're already 0-1 in league.
Right. And for a team that's 0-1 in a 5-team league, and people have to remember, you're only guaranteed 2 playoff spots in this league, and it's going to be hard to get that at-large in the Pac-5. It might not come from the Sarah, so all these games are important. The only good thing for Bishop Amat is their first loss, their opening loss last week, was against defending champion Alamany, the only team that's unbeaten in league, and we're only 2 weeks into the season. I mean, they've got Crespi coming into town this week. Crespi, of course, lost the big game last week, Aram,
to Notre
Dame. That really opened it up because every team except Alamany now has 1 loss. And with Amat already losing to Alamany, they actually control their own destiny, meaning if they win out, they'll be guaranteed at least no worse than second. If Alamany stumbles along the way, maybe a tie for first. But it all starts this week. They can't lose at home. There's just no way. I mean, after the start they've had, being undefeated up until last week, you lose a home game Friday and you start 0-2, your chances, even if you win the last 3 games, aren't looking
last
good.
2 games.
Last 2 games.
They only have 4 in
league.
league.
To make the playoffs.
Yeah, and so that's why we talk about this being a pivotal swing game for Bishop Amat, because going down 0-2, yeah, they could win their final 2 games of the season, but they're going to need probably help somewhere else, as far as making other teams 2-2 as well. And then we may be back in the coin flip situation again, Fred. But this is only for 2 spots, though, like you said. Champion, if the league plays out the way we think it will, where Alamany goes on and wins the whole thing. If you only have 1 loss in league after Alamany, you're probably going to be second place. But if you have 2 losses and another team has 2 losses, and you're probably looking at the head-to-head and the coin flip stuff. So very, very paramount that Amat takes care of business, and you obviously don't want to go down 0-2 in league, like Fred said. Freddie, here's the problem when we start doing drills and whatnot and making predictions on these games that involve teams from out of the area. I don't know too much about Crespi. I mean, I go through their scores, and I can see, obviously, they're a good team. Of course, a lot of the games they played this year, team from Arizona, team from Nevada, team from up in Fresno, aren't teams I really know about. So that's kind of it's kind of hard to get a read on them. I don't know what you know about Crespi, but I do know this. I don't think they can throw it around the park like Alamany does. And as we've seen, Amat can't really handle yet those teams that are athletic and throw it around. So if it's that kind of slow type of game, even though Crespi has talent, it kind of helps Amat's defense that they don't have to spread out and cover a spread.
Well, the first game, 20-7 over Loyola, kind of a low-scoring game. And last week, although it said 40-34 over Notre Dame, that was a 4-overtime game, so the points are kind of misleading how much in that game. And look, Crespi is one of those 2 teams, I think before the year started, I think a lot of people were talking about Crespi Alamany as the 2 best teams. So Amat's opening with who most people believed were the 2 best teams. Now, for Amat, what I've noticed that the trend all year, Aram, is they haven't gotten a lot of 3-and-outs. They've really had to work to get teams off the field. I saw that last week. Alamany scored the first 6 times they touched a ball. And another thing is they've got to make plays when they have opportunities to make plays. There was last week, they scored first, had a 7-0 lead. Deonze Blue had a pick just kind of gifted to him about the 5-yard line. He drops that. Alamany scores at 7-7. Little things like that. The pick at the end of the first half that turned what could be a tie game into a 14-point halftime deficit. Amat's got to take advantage of those little things, because in these games like this, where these teams are so evenly matched, really, and these games can go either way, you've got to take advantage of those opportunities. And in the games I've watched against Alamany over the years, they haven't taken advantage of those opportunities. And that's really been the difference in a lot of these Sarah League games is what you're going to do with those. And I think their opportunity now is that they're at home.
Right,
they're at home,
that's true.
And their playoff life is on the line. They're kind of backed into a corner. And I think they're going to come out and answer, and I think they're going to be able to score points. But I think the challenge really this week is for that defense, because if you look at the scores, Crespi in a lot of the games, they're not Alamany offensively, but they've got a good offense. They're probably a little tougher to score on, than Alamany was. Amat offensively could really do what they wanted last week against Alamany. They didn't really put up any resistance at all. So it's really gonna be another one of those chess matches. How good is Amat's defense gonna be, and how many points can they put on the board on Crespi's defense? It's another. You're right. They're very hard games to pick, but
because we haven't seen Crespi.
But I think you have to like Amat at home.
Well, here's the thing. Not only Amat at home, but Crespi was 7-0 going into last week's game. If they were a legit 7-0, in my opinion, they would have taken care of business. And I don't want to say that they're not legit, but they would have beaten Notre Dame. And I know Notre Dame gave Alamany a good game the week before, but I mean, if you lay over the league like people thought maybe Crespi or Alamany would, or even some people Amat, you take care of business in that game. But beyond all that, I think Crespi's teams the last 2 years were better than this current team, and Amat beat them both times. They beat them on the road last year. They beat them at Amat the year before for a game that I was at. I think Amat's better than they were the last 2 years. I think Amat at home, like you said, takes care of business. This team can't do the things offensively that Alamany can. Give me Bishop Amat at home in this game.
And this is the big one to me, because I think Loyola, you look at, that's the one team to me that has struggled. Loyola, I mean, they lost a game earlier in the year. I forget who it was. It was the game where they got the forfeit back. And it was like, well, how bad was that score? It was 50-something to nothing, whatever.
45-0 to St. John Bosco,
right,
which is a very good Trinity
but
team.
it's still 45-0.
Yeah,
you should be able to compete if you're,
it's the same division.
If you're at that level.
Yeah.
And that's the one team, Loyola, to me, that's kind of the bottom feeder in this division. Still a good team, but not as good as the top four. Amat gets them at Loyola next week. This is very important. You beat Crespi. You figure that's the one winnable game on the road. Then it comes down to week 10. Notre Dame coming in here. Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Yeah, right. Because those teams probably each have a loss.
Right.
And that would be it. So this is the week that sets it up. And you know what I was really thinking, Aram, and I think you might have pointed it out. Bishop Amat is really missing Adam Alcantara. That's the one guy who's probably going to be their best returner on defense. You look at what Hauser's done for Charter Oak. I can only imagine what Alcantara would have been for Bishop Amat this year. And another guy who needs to get going really is Deonze Blue, because I don't know if he's got some lingering health issues, but hasn't been able to run it through the tackles, run up the middle at all. He's fine when he gets outside sometimes, but they're not getting enough from that position. They're really relying, I think, a little bit too much on Koa Haynes, Darren Andrews, and company, and that's a hard way to live. I mean, against these teams, I think at some point you're going to need a consistent run game. Just so that the other teams also aren't on the field so darn much, so your defense has a chance to rest. Yeah. That's part of the problem with Amat this year, give up a lot of points. Their defense has no chance to rest because Koa takes them down the field and he scores quick. All of a sudden they're back on the field. Yeah. You don't have that Jalen Moore pounding it down 12, 13, 14, balls in succession and long 8-9 minute drives. You don't get that with this Amat team, and I really think they need to steady that down the stretch, and especially if they want a chance in the playoffs. But yeah, I like at the end of the day, I like Amat at home also.
So we both have Amat. Get out to Kiefer. They're obviously going to need your support. That's Crespi at Bishop Amat Friday night, 7 p.m. Enjoy it.